Hey there, Legal Tea listeners. This is your host, Jenny Roselle. Welcome back for another Legal Tea episode today, episode 104, I do believe. Today's topic is a current trend, and usually on this type of episode, we dive into something going on in the current time, or maybe that I've stumbled across on the news or social media that is pertinent to my little estate and elder law world. Today's episode is going to be about an article I stumbled across on USA Today that was titled, Florida Woman Leaves Inheritance, Tampa Estate to 7 Persian Cats. And of course, instantly I was intrigued. That's why the title of this episode is what it is. I'm sure you were like, what the heck is Jenny talking about today when you saw the episode title? So today we're going to be talking about that story, as well as, since we're on the topic, how to incorporate planning for our furry friends into an estate plan. Let's talk about the story first. And I'm talking about the story that inspired this episode. In November 2022, a lady by the name of Nancy Sauer of Tampa, Florida, passed away at the age of 84. And I think I read somewhere that she had lost her husband already and maybe their only child as well. So it was just her at the age of 84. She passed away November of last year. According to USA Today and the Tampa Bay Times, Nancy had a provision in her last will and testament regarding her 7 Persian cats, and specifically that a portion of her estate would be given, I'm going to say to, like in air quotes, to the cats. Nancy's friend Yana shared with Tampa Bay Times that Nancy was, quote, worried the pets would struggle if they were separated. So to combat that, Nancy said her house would not be sold until the last cat died. Now, in an interesting turn of events, the probate judge, where her estate was being administered through, actually ordered that the cats should not remain in Nancy's home and instead should be placed in new homes. So after the probate court judge ordered that, the cats were taken in by the local Humane Society. Sherry Silk is the executive director of the local Humane Society, which is the Humane Society of Tampa Bay. And she shared that she also agreed that the cats should not be in a home alone, especially of that size, like the home being rather large. So for that reason, the cats are now under the Humane Society's care. And Sherry said that she is, quote, going to personally make sure that they can keep as many together as they can and that they go to the perfect house, end quote. Now, in another article in People magazine, it was disclosed that the individual that was supposed to be dropping in at the house and caring for the cats inside Nancy's home was not really doing what Nancy probably would have wanted, nor was it really in the best interest of the cats. And what I mean by that is in the People article, the caretaker, quote, had put each cat in a big dog crate, and they were left in the crates in not necessarily the cleanest environment, end quote. That makes way better sense, because when I first learned that the judge sort of like went against Nancy's will and intention for the cats, my first thought was like, wow, I'm surprised the judge went against the will like that. But supposedly, the executor of the estate is really who raised the concern to the judge, and then the judge ordered it from there. So, yeah, that makes way better sense. Furthermore, Nancy expressly gifted the cats money too, to specifically aid in their care, so like their vet bills, food, grooming, etc. And according to the article in People, the cats' inheritance, which sounds funny to say out loud, the cat's inheritance was placed in a restricted account. And Sherry Silk, that's the executive director of the Humane Society, said that, quote, as people adopt them, they will pay for the vet care, or they'll pay for the grooming, for example, and then they will give us receipts, and then we will reimburse them. And it goes for the rest of the cat's life, end quote. And hearing that makes my heart happy, because clearly Nancy in her will, and Nancy while she was living, she was concerned about taking care of her cats. And even though the cats did not remain in Nancy's house, I think her wish regarding her estate taking care of the cats is still getting fulfilled, and I love that. And oh, by the way, if you go to the People article, there are pictures of the Persian cats. So if you're a cat person or an animal lover, go to the website in my source links, because there's some super cute pictures of them. So now that we know that there are some wealthy Persian cats in Tampa, let's talk about how you can support animals and furry friends in your estate plan. So there really are two primary ways that you can support animals and pets in estate planning. First, you can support your favorite organizations in your plan. So you can, by, say, donating an amount to them following your passing. But you also, secondly, can specifically provide what happens to your beloved pets, your furry friends, your fur babies, whatever you want to call them, in your estate plan following your passing. So if they are still living, there's a plan for them, just like Nancy did. So let's tackle each of these ways one by one, starting with how to incorporate supporting and donating to animal shelters, animal rescues, etc. within your estate plan. In general, there are 3 ways you can tackle this. First, you can put them as a beneficiary of your will or trust, meaning they would get a specified percentage of your estate following taxes, expenses, etc. So say, for example, you have the Humane Society as a 25% beneficiary, and your 3 kids each get 25% too. And that's just an example of what this method looks like. So I see some clients do it this way, but it's less common than the other 2 options that I'm about to go through, because this way it's a little hard to control what they end up with getting at the end of the day, meaning it could be way more or way less than what you are really wanting. Second, a second method of how to support animal organizations is you can bequeath them a specific amount. And I know that's a really funny, weird word, but it basically means that after the taxes and expenses, etc., there are these things that are called bequests, and they take place first before beneficiaries get kind of the remainder. This is probably the most common method I see clients do to support animal organizations. So here's an example for you. So after taxes, expenses, etc., say you have a $5,000 bequest to the Humane Society. So your executor or trustee, depending on the type of plan you have, would distribute $5,000 to the Humane Society off the top. And the remaining estate and trust funds go to your designated beneficiaries, so say your kids. If you want to give a fairly significant amount, you can also put some parameters around it. So say you want to do $50,000 to the Humane Society. There's ways that you can kind of put parameters around it by saying it's $50,000 to the Humane Society so long as my estate exceeds $500,000. And if the estate does not exceed $500,000, then this bequest, this amount lapses, or something like that. A third method that you can do to support animal organizations is you can actually put organizations as an actual beneficiary on an asset. I mostly see this on a retirement account, and I won't bore you with the how, I guess, the details, but there are tax benefits in doing it this way. So what this looks like is that instead of the organization being in your will or your trust, as a percentage beneficiary or a bequest we just talked about, the organization actually is designated as a beneficiary on the asset itself. So at your passing, the organization claims their share of the asset. And I see it somewhat often on retirement accounts, because oftentimes retirement accounts are buckets of money that has not been taxed yet. So when these kind of funds go to charitable organizations, there are tax advantages in doing it this way for you and your estate, and it passes to them tax-free. So it's a win-win. So those are the 3 general methods on how you can provide for and support animal organizations from an estate planning perspective. And if you have any questions at all about this, feel free to reach out to me at legalteapodcast@gmail.com. I'm super happy to help you figure out a way to support animal organizations. And we can kind of go back and forth and figure out something that works really well for you. So next topic that I referenced a bit ago was how to provide for your own pets within your estate plan, which I think is a wonderful idea and one that I think frequently gets forgotten about. After all, there's some huge percentage of animals that end up in shelters and rescues because their owners have passed away or their owners have gotten ill. And at that point, maybe no one wants them, or maybe no one can take them in. So getting this conversation started while you are healthy and, sorry to be crude, but alive is really important. Doing so will help prevent your pets from ending up in a place that you would have never wanted them to end up. First, it's important to figure out who is able and willing to take in your pets. And it certainly doesn't hurt to have a backup either. So say you talk to your niece, Amanda, and Amanda is able and willing to take in your pets. We should also get a backup in place for Amanda in case something happens to her, or maybe her circumstances change and she becomes unable to take in your pets. It also does not hurt to throw them a monetary bone. And what do I mean by this? Well, say Amanda does take in your furry friends. Those furry friends cost money, my friends. And, between food and toys and vet bills, and as they age, they may start needing medicines. All that is money, money, money. And there's no wrong amount either. Anything is better than nothing. I've seen as low as like a few $100. I've seen as much as like 20,000 plus for the person, here my example, Amanda, to help care for the pets. So yeah, there are multiple ways that you, when you take the time to #DoYourEstatePlan, that you can support animal organizations like shelters and rescues that are near and dear to your heart, or you can support your own furry friends. Some people, when I'm meeting with them and they bring up their pets, they laugh and say something like, this actually just happened yesterday in a client meeting I was in. A client will often say, this may sound silly, but should we say something about our pets? And I'm always like 100% yes, let's do it. And then we can start talking about what works for them. Alrighty, I am getting to be out of time, my friends, so let's wrap this episode up. Next week's topic is on estate planning of the rich and famous. And on that episode, we're going to dive into what happened estate-wise following the passing of the author of Jurassic Park. His name is Michael. So you may not have heard of Michael personally and specifically, but everyone knows Jurassic Park, right? So Michael had an estate plan, but he left behind a blended family. And in that blended family was his wife, who was actually pregnant at the time of Michael's passing. The issue was that Michael and his wife had actually signed a premarital agreement, or informally called a prenup, which made his wife not an heir of Michael's estate. But then the court had to get involved and had to wrestle with this whole idea that his wife was actually pregnant with Michael's, biological child. So yeah, there was a lot going on, and there's going to be a lot to learn about from his estate and what happened in his estate. So we will dive into that next Tuesday, Legal Tea listeners. Talk to you then, and stay well.